Oloche in Nigeria, which is incredibly exciting for all of us. And he's waiting to speak. You can't see him yet, but I can see him here. And then he's going to talk to us. So what we're going to do, James Murray White, wonderful filmmaker, made River Festival films in Cambridge. He's done tons of amazing films.
Wow.
No pressure.
And he was, in very, very early days of GroundWork, he was a kind of filmmaker in residence for a little while. So anyway, what we're going to do, James will say a few words, then we're going to turn the projector back on, watch the film Oloche's made, and then he's also made a supplementary audio talking about his images, which at that point he will share on screen via Zoom. So you can understand why we've been juggling up here while you've been enjoying coffee, I hope. So over to James.
Thank you, Veronica. And yes, absolute treat. I'm lucky enough to have known GroundWork and Veronica all the time, and what amazing stuff that she does, and the whole team, and what an amazing bunch of artists doing this. So unfortunately it falls to me to take it down a bit into activism and politics and stuff, but I'll try and bring some fire. And I was trying to remember earlier, what's that amazing piece of art? What's the big... No, not Richard Long. The what's the big house that does Houghton? What's in the courtyard? But there's an amazing water sculpture with fire comes out.
Oh,
Yipper Hine. So keep that. If you don't know that, I'd really recommend a trip just to see that, because it is extraordinary, breathing fire out of water. So elements. Yes, I wanted to try and kind of follow on from what you've all been saying, and the kind of creativity with a bit of spirituality in kind of my activism and my observing and engagement. I try and get back to the spiritual, because I don't want to burn out. I've been burnt out before many times, and I see so many people in this world just kind of collapsing. So I try and kind of come back to spirituality, but halfway on the road to that, perhaps there's inspiration from the American anthropologist Donna Haraway. If you don't know her work, I love this phrase, staying with the trouble that we see and we engage with, and we know it's there. Just had a conversation with Helen about more houses being built. I live in Cambridge, and I grew up there, and it's, you know, I've come back after 15, 20 years away, and, you know, every inch of the city. I'll come back in a minute, and I'll finish with Nine Wells, the holy spring of the city in the waterway. But just finishing with Donna Haraway, the staying with the trouble and the idea of finding and working with the oddkin. Ironically, and I'd be interested to see what Russell connects with this or not, oddkin around rivers and waterways is fishermen, fisher folk. I'm a dog person, so I get in trouble sometimes when my dog goes in the water, and people might have a go about the bank, etc. But there's bigger issues at play here. But I just wanted to say 3 examples of around the UK of amazing river activism that gives me hope on all levels. And the first is Bristol. We've got someone who's come all the way from Bristol to be here today, so thank you. Bristol is doing amazing things because it's an amazing city full of creativity. I really recommend the amazing documentary Rave On for the Avon, which is so good. We got it to Cambridge twice, and that shows the kind of power and creativity. They now have the Avona, the puppet of the river that is has arisen and is now kind of, hopefully we're getting it to Cambridge, but it's coming on tour as a symbol of kind of people's passion and people's care. And also in that great city, the amazing activist Meg has married the River Avon, and that's a whole strand of the documentary. If you don't know about that, please look it up, or I can tell you about it later on. In the River Wye, which we know sadly has been contaminated with tons and tons of chicken shit from the super industrial super factories that are a long part of it. You're tapping that, Henry. Does that mean speak into the... Okay, sure. So activists along the River Wye have responded with the goddess of the River Wye, which is an extraordinary creature, and they're using that puppet to engage with local politics. They took it to London for the big river march. And then finally, back to my own home city again, in Cambridge. Some of you may know the artist activist Hilary Cox Condon, who's created an extraordinary river mural on the banks of the River Cam and the new Chisholm Bridge, and it's divided opinion. I personally love it. It's a fiery goddess of the River Cam, so that's inspiring all of us to come together as a community and defend our beloved river. On the way here this morning, cycling to the station, I got into a little fight with nearly a fisticuffs actually with someone who was organising the rowers because he didn't see the swans in the middle of the river. These are the riverkin. These have as much right to be in the river as the rest of us, as much as the rowers can go up and down for 2 hours a day. I can feel myself getting passionate about it. Another thing worth telling you, I want everyone to know, Ashwell Springs is the source of our beloved River Cam. If you've never been to the little village of Ashwell, if you're ever on the 505 near Royston, just see the sign, and it's the most exquisite springs in the middle of the village. I was there the other day, and it's just looking, and ash trees is named after a healthy because they're situated in this water and along the banks of it. So just trying to point out some good things. Finishing off with Nine Wells, another source of the River Cam. I did try and inveigle upon Veronica to bring you all to Nine Wells during the residency, but it wasn't to be. If anyone hasn't ever been to Nine Wells and wants to come to Cambridge, just give me a shout. I'd be honoured to take you and show you that holy place, which Macfarlane goes on about in his wonderful new book about rivers and waterways around the world. There's lots more I could tell you. I would talk to you about Newmarket as an amazing community that is got together. I made a little film about this, naming the chalk stream in Newmarket, which has just been called a drain for 40 years. But things are happening now, and the community is formed, and every year there's a procession, the Rivers of Light procession, where 400 kids make lanterns and take them along for an evening along this to engage, and they've got pictures of herons and beautiful river aquatic life. Yeah, I think I'll shut up and introduce Oloche. You're better at introducing Oloche because you've studied his work. We've got Oloche, and then we've got Russell talking about a local thing, and perhaps I'll moderate a bit between that.
Well, you have Oloche's biography on your tables, just to say that what he's produced is not quite what either he, I think, or we were quite expecting. So he was going to join us all and couldn't because he had to go to Nigeria. And he couldn't, so I suggested to him that he should do something in Nigeria, and how about the Niger Delta, which is far worse than anything we have here. And so that's exactly what he did, I think with some considerable difficulty in the end. But anyway, we're going to hear more. So we're going to, first of all, he's made his film to introduce himself, and then audio. Here's the film.
Hello everybody, my name is Oloche Johnson, Ollie for short. I've been multidisciplinary artist. I'm currently in Nigeria. I am a participating member in this year's residency program with GroundWork UK. Though I am not opportune to be there in person, I am more than astounded that my art came there to represent me. Now, on the topic of this residency, we were tasked to depict the pollution and the overwhelming state of the waters around the world. Being in Nigeria, I felt it as a nice challenge to be able to make something that I have a little experience with personally, being the Niger Delta. Now, Nigeria is a big place. We speak over 500 different languages. So I personally have never been to the Niger Delta regions and experience and see the suffering and pollutions of the water firsthand. So this was a beautiful experience for me to be able to go there and see the people living these lives. And now I decided to use the more traditional means of artistic expression to be able to kick the suffering through painting instead of my traditional digital part, because I felt it ought to be something that we kind of see and feel. And I am more than happy for the opportunity given to me to actually be able to do this in the first place. Thank you once again. I hope you enjoy the paintings. And it's sad that I'm not going to Lynn in person. I'm sending you love, we're from a meeting here to be five.
We could come back to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
We've got Oloche in the corner. Was that the first one? No, it wasn't. Okay. Is that the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do I move the screen around? Just press
That one.
I'm trying to remember. Okay.
So Russell Biggs.
Hiya. Basically, I'm a chalk stream campaigner, basically, and the reason we started with these two photographs.
Talk into the mic.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm going to probably move around a lot, but the reason we started with these two photographs is the lovely one with the water crowfoot in there. Looks, almost like you could walk across it. That's the River Babingley. And how many of you actually went on the walk to the Babingley, to the springs? So obviously, few of you have seen it. Well, I'm lucky enough that I live literally half a mile below the springs. So that river is classed as Norfolk's best trout stream. And I'm sure you all enough to remember the Yellow Pages, the J.R. Hartley advert, where he goes fly fishing. And this is J.R. Hartley fishes again, or casts again. And Michael Russell, he actually lived 5 miles away from the Babingley, where I lived. Unfortunately, he died in 2020, but that was his favourite river, and he talks about it in this book. And I was lucky enough to actually meet him about 2 years before he died. He was actually sitting on the river bank, and I remember him introducing himself as Michael, and being a fisherman. It wasn't until years later that I saw his photograph. I thought, oh, hang on, that's the Yellow Pages, chap. But moving on to the other photograph, that's the Gaylord River, and the issue there, it should look obviously like the Babingley, but all this is down to massive phosphate. And the top of the Gaylord River, it starts in a village called Gayton. It starts a bit like the Babingley, through the woods, meadows, etc. Gets down about 1.5 miles, becomes sort of more like a ditch. And then we come to the Anglian Water Surgery Works at Pot Row. It's that one, isn't it? Is it up or down?
A little down.
Down, okay. Just see what comes up. And I'll just show you these videos. This is the Babingley.
Oh.
Go back to the first one. I'm useless on computers, that's why. Got my assistant.
Oh, there we go. For some reason it's...
This is when I discovered my mobile phone. You can stick it underwater. This is the River Babingley. When you look at it, you can see the plant life. A lovely gravel bed where the trout will spawn. Lamprey. I don't think we've got white crayfish in there, but the next video, similar stream, and this is the Gaylord River, and this is phosphate. So you can see instantly what phosphate does. It covers everything with algal scum. So we've lost the gravel, we've lost the plants, this is so sort of thick it suffocates the plants, so the plants don't grow. You can probably see the stream bed there. No, it should be over there, but the gravel's completely gone. So this time of year, October onwards to about January, the brown trout will be actually coming upstream to obviously spawn. There's no gravel in the Gale River, and again, this is all down to the Angling Water Surge Works. I get extraordinarily high phosphate readings there. I'm actually qualified as a river tester, so I can do all the tests, and also do riverfly testing as well. When I do riverfly testing in the Babylon compared to the Gaywood, it's just, you know, you're hitting a dead zone basically. Let's see what comes up next. Right, these are phosphate tests. These are all done the last 3 months in the Gale River. The extraordinary thing, or the worst part about it, is the figure. For a healthy chalk stream, I'm looking for a 0.02. So when you look at a figure like 1.45, it's 100 times more phosphate than it should be, or should be. Same with the ammonia, that's the yellow one. That should be 0.02 to 3. So again, these are just extraordinary figures. I've presented these to Angling Water, and incredibly, obviously people like Furl Sharkey have made it really sort of, yeah, everyone knows about river pollution now, but the Angling Water actually accused me of manipulating my films and evidence. You know, and you think, why? You know, just own up to the fact. The sewage works at Pot Row, which goes into the Gale River, that was built probably 60 years ago when the village was, say, 1,000 houses. 2025, we're in a situation now where the village is 4 or 5 times the size, and they're still building more. Obviously, with Steve Reed wants to build everywhere, build baby, build, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's using the same sewage network. Obviously, when it was built 60 years ago, virtually no one had a dishwasher. Washing machines, I'm sure you're my generation. I remember my mum, once a week, she'd have a twin tub there. You know, if I wanted a pair of jeans ready for the weekend, she'd put them into a bucket for a week. And nowadays, my partner or wife, she'll literally have the washing machine on for the morning and the afternoon, washing sheets twice a week, which is, you know, unheard of. Anything she wears is in the washing machine. My children are the same. And on top of that, obviously you've got the dishwasher. And I'm sure you've all seen it, I don't know if you've ever looked, but where your pipe comes out of the washing machine or dishwasher into the tap outside, if you've ever looked in there, you'll literally see there's probably about 6 inches of phosphates, you know, everything you put into the washing machine. And again, I'm not one that uses the washing machine much, but where the powders go in, every time you pull out, that's always full of hard sort of white material, because everyone gets carried away with it. And of course, all that's going into the drains. That's where all the phosphate comes from. And on the Pot Row one that goes to the Gale River, unfortunately, they don't have a phosphate stripper. It costs about £1 million. But obviously what I'm doing is campaigning. I'm a part of another group, Gale River Revival, and that was through the power of, I've never done social media until COVID kicked in, and I went on to, I call it Twitter, it's obviously X now, but by meeting people on that, we actually formed a campaign group, 5 of us, which had campaigned to get the Gale River sorted out. And it is starting to work, because obviously the more we, particularly me, because I was self-employed, I'm in my own business, recycling paper and cardboard in Kingston for years, sort of gave it up last year, and so I'm retired, so I have the right to slag off anyone, be critical of them. I don't have to sort of apologise to anyone, and to the point that one of the polluters, I'll show you some evidence in a while, but that they basically tried to sue me for malicious harassment, slander, libel, but yeah, after spending hundreds of thousands of pounds fighting them, we went to mediation and they basically backed down, so obviously they covered my costs. But I was prepared to do that, you know, sacrifice my house. Obviously my wife wasn't particularly happy that I was able to put everything online to just prove a point, but obviously I did, and that's how I feel, because I'm so passionate about the sort of rivers, because I say, as from the beginning of the photographs, because I'm living on the River Babylon, it's the best chalk stream in all Norfolk, so I tend to sort of look around and think, no, that's not good, that's not good. And next one, see what comes up. Right, moving down from the surge works, so this is nearly 1.5 miles downstream. This is a place called Borsey, and anyone in Kings Lynn, I'm not even going to say the name, but it's a well-known waste recycling business in Kings Lynn. Orange skips, I'll give you that much as a clue, but this is photographs taken from about 2018, 19 and 20. I see we got Ollie's picture up in the corner there. But I'm just going to move on. You can all hear me, can't you? That photograph there, the bank up behind it, that's 4,000 tonnes of trommel fines. And trommel fines is when you recycle waste, it goes to a machine, and it's all the stuff you can't recycle, so it's all microfibres, bits of rubbish, and that all is meant to go to landfill. This business basically just built a mountain in their yard alongside a little stream that goes into the Gade River, and you can see where it's actually falling into the river. Obviously, Ollie's picture wasn't up there. You can actually see where it's pushed the fence over and it's actually physically gone to the river. You can see like oil and sheen on top. I mean, some of that Tim will know is possibly chalybeate as well. But then this picture here with the rubbish, when I sort of made that public, because all these went onto Twitter basically, so you can see why they got a bit annoyed with me. But they said, oh, that was a windy day. And you think, a windy day, I mean, you can see the rubbish in the river. It's actually, been there for years, and of course it's getting washed down the river. And where their stream actually joins the Gade River, you can actually see polystyrene coming out and well-known brands of people's sort of waste in King's Lynn. And the final one again, this is oil on top of the river again, because they've got obviously recycled cars and brake cars, and obviously it's a scrapyard which opened up in the 1960s, and when I complained to the EA, I found that they had their own bespoke waste recycling licence, which makes it be a licence to pollute, basically, because if I tried to open a business like that, that'd have to be somewhere in King's Lynn, a contained building, concreted yards, bunded, all separate water supplies, and nothing coming off the roof. But this place is literally in a field alongside a river. Can we, sorry,
Oh, sorry,
skip past, no, it's gone back.
How did it go
If we
back?
just skip past these pictures, because I won't, right. The other thing, just going back to that waste firm, they've got a royal warrant, and obviously we're Sandringham, and they got that from basically taking their sewage from the main house and all the cottages, and they used to take that to a lagoon at Borsey. That was, so you've got thousands of litres of liquid effluent stored in a lagoon, and they used to inject that into the fields, to the point that in sort of about 2018, when I was really going after them big time, they had so much sewage they didn't have the capacity to get rid of it by injection to their land. So, I mean, I've got video evidence again. This is why when we went to mediation they backed down, because they realised I had 20 videos of them showing exactly what was going on, so they couldn't dispute it. Basically, I wasn't lying, I was telling the truth. And there's basically tankers just driving up and down the field with the valve open 20, 30 metres on the Gade River. And I've even got video evidence of where there's pools of grey effluent all over the fields and running into the river. So what's happened is, on the first photograph, again behind Ollie's picture, in the trees at a distance is their site. It doesn't matter, because that is the Gade River, obviously, just in a V-side trench. And the fields in front of the trees, in the distance, is where they were basically just getting rid of their effluent. That's obviously ran into the river, and because it's phosphate rich, to the point, again, I won't say the name, but there's a business in King's Lynn that makes liquid fertiliser, where you basically spray onto the land. They also had the contract of cleaning out their tankers, so that same liquid waste was put into the lagoon with the septic waste, which is legally allowed to pump into the ground. But obviously if you're collecting industrial waste, which obviously goes to make fertiliser, it's slightly higher than the phosphate from the septic tank. You're talking massive figures, but basically that went into the same tank and was disposed of the same way onto the land. Even the land they were pumping into was basically, it's just sand and gravel above the level of the floodplain, so it's all going to seep down anyway. But the reason I've shown that photograph is the Kingston I've had a bit of a campaign against them, because they tend to view the Gade River as a drain, and all they want to do is basically rip all the plants out, pull out all the sort of mud. They've told me they never actually dredge it, but this is a picture from, I think, 2018-19 again, where obviously they physically dredged it. And what's disturbing, you can see the black mud in a sort of normal stream, because I do riverfly testing and water testing. You'd dig up the mud and it'd be absolutely crawling with life, millions of worms. That was the day after the first photograph, where it's obviously started to oxidise a little bit on the top, but then I scooped about half a pint of this stuff out and sieved it all, and it's completely anaerobic, so there's no life in there whatsoever. And what makes it even more disturbing is, I couldn't do it because at that point I wasn't river testing, but I should imagine the phosphate that's held in there is astronomical. And the thing about phosphates, it doesn't really break down. It just sort of breaks into other types of phosphate. I won't go into the science of it, but it's in the riverbed forever. So every time the IDB come along and think, right, those reeds have gone mad, and the reason those reeds have gone mad is because obviously they're thriving on the phosphate in the river, so they think, well, hang on, that's going to block the river, we've got to pull those out. And the minute obviously their big digger comes in, rips it out, that disturbs the stream bed or the riverbeds, and that's why we had that filthy sort of grey sort of water right at the beginning. Just going back to another book, whoever came on the walk with me again, we ended up at, remember the Long Pond? This is a book, a chap called Ken Regis. He was the one that got evacuated in the war. Hopefully I can see this, but basically he came back in 1999 and wrote a book about the Long Pond, and he was saying how it's changed, where he was there, it was crystal clear water, how I remember it, fish everywhere, plants everywhere. And in 1999, he was basically saying all the streams, the ditches around were all being filled in, the rivers are appalling state, suffering pollution. But I'll just go on to perhaps more the positive side. The Long Pond, that's been cleared. A firm called Aquasurf and Corby came in a few months ago and removed all the rubbish out of there. And speaking to the chap in charge, he said they've now put a quote into the council, which he thinks is going to go ahead, that they're going to come back in the winter and desilt it. So that's the positive news. Going back onto the Gale River, part of the campaigning I'm doing is for the Gale River revival is because I'm so critical of the IDB. I don't like their work. Above Bawsey, they've not touched the river at all this year, so it's been left with all the plants in there. Whereas before, if there's a single stick in there, lump of weed, they'd pull it out because there's this sort of theory, you've got to drain the lands, but obviously the whole theory how we work now is you want to keep the water upstream, but they've actually, this year, above the pollution hotspot of Bawsey, that they've completely left the river, so it's starting to recover. So I'm trying to think what I was going to say. I lost track there. What we do know as well is, without saying too much, is there's a lot of work looking to restoration, and to the point that we've guilted, or I have, guilted Anglian Water so much that sounds like the only way they're going to get out of this is putting a few £1 million to improving the Gale River. And the Environment Agency, I don't know if anyone's had any dealing with them, but they're the most useless organisation in the world. I mean, obviously they're government-led, and no disrespect to sort of young students who come straight out of university, but I'm dealing with children, age sort of 22, 23, that think they know more about the catchment and pollution I do, and to the point they just come along and, the river looks all right, and within a year, because they find they can't actually fight any of the polluters, they all give up and go and work for Anglian Water anyway, or different business. So the Environment Agency, it's their job to look after the environment, but they don't basically. I've sent probably over 40 different videos and reports into them, and the business I'm talking about has been, so far, had a couple of letters and a few restrictions. The waste, actually, we were showing at the beginning, they did have to remove that, 4,000 tonnes of it, and I know for a fact they were paying 25 tonnes in a load. They were paying £300 a tonne for it to go to landfill somewhere in Liverpool because it's treated as hazardous waste. So you can imagine, multiply that by 4,000 tonnes. It cost them a bit of money, but obviously I'm not too worried about that. But we're obviously talking about water again. It's funny because what Tim was talking about, the Flitching Springs, like I said, I live there and I know it really well. The river's the lowest level I've ever seen it, and that picture where he shows the dry valley, I've actually seen that when it's had 6 foot of water in there, and the water's run all the way as far up to the Peddars Way, which is hardly another mile above there. And this happened in 2022, 23, in that really record winter. Again, I was lucky, heard of, what's his name, Adam Nicholson. He's an author. You might know him as Sarah Raven, the gardener's husband, but he did a piece for National Geographic, and I actually took him to the Flitching Springs. And I always find the Flitching Springs is such an incredible place because you know, I've said it to a few people, there's probably more people on the top of Everest this afternoon than there has been to the Flitchen Springs, the piece I know, that have been in the last 100 years, because it's a private area. Obviously, the people that visited, you've seen it from Abbey Farm, but right in the middle, it's like a valley, basically, obviously the Ice Age, the large river ran through there, cut a large sort of escarpment from the chalk there, and that's where all the springs come up. But Adam was obviously writing this piece in National Geographic, and our relationship with water is important because, and Tim said, it's life-giving, and it is. And one of the things that Adam always picks up, and I felt a bit embarrassed when I realised what it sort of printed, but I've basically been running a business since '86 in King's Lynn, recycling industry, you know, running sort of 10, 15 people employed, and all the sort of hassle that goes with it, to the point, you know, some days you'd be walking away when all the equipment's gone wrong, you know, you've lost your biggest contract, someone's walked out, or so one of your drivers has crashed into another vehicle or something, and you'd come home and I'd be, oh God. And other than having a few beers, what basically kept me alive was walking bottom of my garden and walking alongside the river. And I remember sort of Adam, when he put this National Geographic, was saying, as I was walking alongside with Russell, he basically said, he sort of went quiet and said, the only reason I'm alive is because of this river. And that is it is that relationship. And it's living alongside the river that basically keeps me going, and obviously gives me more passion. So basically, hopefully one day, see the Gale River, looking like the river babbling, and it can be done. But am I talking too long? I just feel like...
Just one wrap up.
Okay. I think that's it really, isn't it?
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we're now going back to Oloche. It actually might work out quite well having this alternating, because then we've got a good point of comparison between the two.
Hello, can you hear you?
Yeah, great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great. So it's a pleasure once again. Really good honor to be amongst such people that do such great works. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to hear the last speech, but I'm sure Veronica will be able to catch me up on that. So to talk on my art pieces, I would like to start with the first, the Irregular Hourglass. Now, the Irregular Hourglass. Okay, to begin, most of my works, instead of taking literal examples from the spaces I went to, I drafted more for symbolism, because I feel that speaks a lot more. So the Irregular Hourglass is covered with jagged earth, the earth of the Niger Delta, and the center, which is hollow, but instead of sand, it is oil or black gold that is being excavated from these places, leaving nothing but a hollow shell at the end of the day. I feel this...
Veronica, is he meant to be sharing the screen?
Is it sharing?
No,
No,
it was, but...
it was all through the last talk.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on.
Why not just keep talking? And because we can see the pictures later, they're up in the gallery, and we'll keep an image in our mind because you're describing them very clearly.
Okay. Okay, so the hourglass. Yeah, so basically I'm just trying to talk on the fact that very soon the grounds are going to be empty and there's nothing going to be left of value within them. And then what would the society have left but a hollow shell? That's for that one at least, the Irregular Hourglass. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit shy. Okay. Now, another thing about it is the technique that I used to paint it. Unlike the others, I didn't decide to use pointillism because I wanted to depict the oil stains by the sides, you know, to really speak and bring out more of the message. Then to go on to the next painting, which is the masks. The river wears a mask. This is a painting I used pointillism to make. Now, one thing about it is how it speaks to the waters carrying a memory. That's the memory of people who have come and passed, the ancestors who look down onto the waters and see what it has become, and the people who are forced to live in a state of pollution that they cannot necessarily do anything about, because most of these organizations have created such a state that they convince the locals and the villagers that they are doing the right thing. And most of these villagers coming from abject poverty instead decide to trade what they have of value, which is the land, for monetary gains, which at the end of the day isn't really worth it because they lose more in the long run. It depicts people still having to fish and live on those waters. A lot of them, I mean, one thing that I found that was really interesting was the lack of cars. Most of them use boats, meaning they're exposed to the waters a lot more than you would think. They live by the waters. The food that they get is from the waters. They bathe in that water as well. A lot of the men there are coming down with cancer and stuff like that because they are forced to take out of this water, knowing that that is their only real source of water around them for miles. And it's not like the government is doing anything. One of my experiences that actually made me paint this one, the painting on the river wears a mask. Actually, I think I told Veronica a little bit about it. The first time I got to the Niger Delta, because most of these really destroyed villages are like protected by shell companies, not because they don't necessarily want journalists to go in there and be able to tell the story and to depict the things that is really going down in the community. So we actually got accosted on the waters by some armed policemen, and it was a surreal experience, to say the least, because these are men from those villages that are being turned against their own, once again, just for financial gain. And it's appalling, to say the least. It's a really terrible situation in whole. The next painting, which is of the faces in the water. Now, these show gold faces. These are digital renditions. My original paintings are a little bit different, but everything is still kind of together. The third one shows the faces melting into the water. This is to symbolize the loss of identity over time. A once proud race of people who have now been left to basically wallow in the filth that is not their own doing at the end of the day. It speaks a lot about ancestry as well, the symbolism of it all, of how eventually whatever potentials that they might have would be eroded and washed away because of the lack of opportunities that they can get based on the fact that the rivers are so polluted. They can't fish, they can't really go to school, they can't really do nothing like that because the companies wall them off from the rest of the world, and it's rather terrible, to say the least. One idea I had from these paintings, why I didn't decide to go with the digital version, is because I was planning to put them up for auction, as I plan to use the proceeds to help out the community in any way that I could. You'd be surprised how much it takes to actually put a child through school. And I feel that is the most important thing at this point, being able to educate the next generation to understand the state at which their homes have been left. Because at the end of the day, it's really not on the adults there anymore to solve this problem. It's the future generation that we have to educate and show that this is bad, and this is what they should fight against. And yeah, that's basically all I can really say on it, but thank you.
Thank you so much. I have to talk down here, don't I? Thank you so much. That was very powerful, and actually much more so that we got your voice. you were clearly speaking from the heart, and that matters a lot. And it was really everybody in the room is nodding. I think we were all deeply, deeply affected by that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just to pick up on that, so the prints we've got prints of those images in the gallery, and we printed some extra ones, and they're £35 each, and the money is going to help the people that helped Oloche. So buy one or two. I mean, several of them have sold. So we're building up a little fund to send him. So shall we try and engage in discussion from all of this? And shall we sit at that table? And how can we include Oloche in that? Shall we just try? Shall I, if I turn my computer around, will he be able to see the room?
Yeah, and then he might not be able to hear the proper, so you might need to type it in. I'll try like sit next to him.
Okay.
I just have to repeat the question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there you are.
Hi.
Hi. Veronica, could we ask if it's been possible to show the work to the people around around the Delta, have a conversation
Okay.
with them?
Did you hear that?
I didn't know whether.
Did you hear that? There was a question for you. Have you been able to show the work to the people around the Delta to have a conversation with them?
So yes, actually I did, but the thing, unfortunately, is that most of them are quite illiterate. I mean, so they don't understand the significance of it. Most of them don't even necessarily know what is going on. They just kind of, their experience is more of a survival mode. They're only thinking about the now and how they can survive as a family in this immediate moment, which is why I feel most of them gravitate towards having the bribes that these companies give them to kind of keep them quiet, so that's the reality.
Well, I guess one thing we can say that hasn't happened here, has it, Russell? You've not.
No,
Oh, actually, you've been attacked.
Well, almost to the point of physicality, because there's a place I actually river test at Thoresby Church Ruins. I sort of do phosphate test at Thoresby Ruins, and unfortunately, in my opinion, if there's going to be any restoration project meaningful for the river, they need to sort of re-meander the river through that sort of part of the farmland. And in the 1980s, there was a chap called Will Hancock who used to basically graze the land with cows, and every year he'd allow it to flood to the point that whole meadows would be underwater, hundreds of curlew, thousands of water birds. I don't know if Nick can ever remember as far back as that, where you're in Norfolk, where below the Thoresby Ruins was just like a wetland. Well, the new owners, unfortunately, have bought it, put in land drains, and they bought it, and the purpose is because I had a right slagging match with their farm manager. It's there to farm, and that's what we're going to do. Sod it. We want that water pumped out. So there's a 24-hour sort of pumping water out from the ditches into the Gade River, and basically they're still trying to grow crops on there. And when we've had the flooding in the last few years, the land was back underwater again. But their idea was then to sort of build a higher bund alongside the Gade River to prevent the water coming in. So you've got a pump operating 24 hours per day all year, for someone to sort of grow crops on maybe sort of 50, 60 acres of land. When I sort of look at it, I think with all the sort of environmental handouts now, we should basically be pushing the river back through there, reducing the natural floodplain, obviously turning it back into a sort of lake pond environment. And anyone who's been stuck on the bypass, from the hospital, up towards Hunstanton Way, the thought of sitting there in your queue and seeing a beautiful wetland either side of the river there with thousands of birds, and when you think how many people actually flock to Norfolk coast, for the Midlands, to actually see the birds, from the coast, you could have a massive reserve in King's Lynn, and that's done a job for everyone. The IDB done it at the Jersey River. That would probably work a bit in the favour of ambient water, because if it goes through a series of ponds and lakes, any phosphates in there will hopefully be taken out by the plants. Just going back to alien water again, because of the pressurising we're doing as well, I think I did mention they are looking to perhaps do some projects, but that's meant to be secret. But they are also now, through pressure, looking at phosphate stripper as well. So if they spend £1 million and take the phosphate out, and in my opinion again, the only way they can build any more houses in the villages that the sewage work goes to is they've got to improve the water being released, because you can't put another 1,000 houses on and have it become even worse. I mean, it's never going to be as bad as Ollie's position with oil, but obviously phosphate is a similar type thing.
Can we give a chance to, Any questions for Oloche? Anyone want to, shall we ask you? Okay. There's a question coming for you, Oloche.
Okay.
My name is Jay. I was just wondering, because obviously that's quite a heavy topic that you're talking about. That's a lot. I was wondering if making the artwork helped you to kind of come to terms with, or like to deal with that subject, because that's quite like upsetting.
Did you hear that?
No, actually, I
Okay,
think that's
so she said this is quite a heavy topic you've been dealing with, and has it helped you deal with it in the course of making your art? Has that been helpful to you in coming to terms with what you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, art in general is a means of expression, and I felt it a very therapeutic moment when I was putting my brush to the canvas, trying to express what I've seen in a way that is easier to process. But I can't really say that I have moved on from the things that I saw there. I mean, you saw the short videos that I was able to send. I mean, one thing that videos protect us from is the sounds and smells and all those other terrible bits that we can't necessarily describe. So I won't necessarily say I've moved on, because for me to totally move on would be to forget the stories that I heard from the people there. So
I guess a better word.
I feel that would be the best way I can answer that.
I should use the word cope rather than deal with.
She said she'd use the word cope.
I should have.
Sorry. Use the word cope rather than deal with. Did it help?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it helped me cope with it a lot then. Yeah.
I guess the word that comes to mind for all of the context really is witness. We're all witnesses, and it is we witnessing, the grief, the experience, and as I said earlier, burnout and tragedy. I mean, look at the floods in the last week in over in Monmouth. I mean, ironically, the guy who was the puppet maker for both the Avona and the Bristol one, Kim, he lived in a ground floor flat in Monmouth, and his flat has been completely flooded out. And he was on the BBC the other day, kind of stood there talking about with his interesting kind of beautiful creative response. But to live through witnesses, I mean, I can't imagine. All I've known about where you are, Oloche, horror. But we as humans, witnessing is the first step, isn't it?
Yeah. So, anyone? Yes. Another question.
Okay.
You want to come and say anything?
It's the red mic.
Nice to
Also,
meet you.
yeah, you too. I'm also one of the residency artists, so it's a pity that we didn't get to see you earlier, but here we are. We're meeting now. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing about your work, and it was I think a lot about heritage in my work, and the stories that we tell each other and stuff like that. And you were saying that you haven't been to the Niger. This was the first time that you went to the Niger Delta. And I was wondering about the stories of the river that maybe you were told or other people were told from history, and whether that has kind of played in your mind as you were creating your work, or whether that has any resonance today. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's actually a really nice one because we Nigerians are quite superstitious about the waters in general. In fact, we have multiple deities that we have assigned to controlling over the waters and stuff like that. From my mother's side, it's actually called Yemoja, and she's the deity of fertility and also the waves. I feel it's not to go off track, but yeah, it's a really interesting topic that I really do enjoy. So yeah, to answer your question shortly, yes, it is. Yeah.
We need to carry on working on this. Tim.
Yeah.
Why not come up to the mic? Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. Hello. Can you see me? Oh, I'm very tall. Hang on. Right. Hello. What you were saying a moment ago touched me. I've got a book at home by someone called Uli Bayer, and she was an artist who, a German artist who came to Nigeria, and she began to work with the local traditions. I think I'm not quite sure which group ethnically it was, but she was able, by creating small temples in traditional style, she was able to revive some of the devotion to the old gods. And you mentioned Yamoja, the goddess of the waters. I was just wondering, is there any scope for architectural artworks in the Niger Delta area to act as a sort of spiritual yeast, enabling people to resist the poisonous influences of the commercial arrangements in the Delta?
So, yes, there are, most definitely. But because of the different cultures and different languages, so we all have our own different ways of interpreting things. I told you what is on my mother's side of the family. I'm actually from two different languages locally spoken in Africa, but my dad's from the UK originally. And there are actually multiple figures that people believe in that can protect them from these things. I know of the Igbo language in Africa, they call it their chi. It's more of a family protective spirit that you carry around with you that is meant to ward away ill spirits and things like that. So yeah.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to close this session. Simon, do you want to come up to the mic, or is it for? Yeah. Russell, will you be staying around? Yeah. So Russell will be staying around. You can pick up with him. Yeah.
Hiya, nice to hear you. One of the things I was wondering is, are there any other activists working in the area that you know of, artist activists? So I was thinking, the name which springs to mind is Sarah Weaver. Do you know Sarah Weaver, poet?
No, I'm not familiar, no.
He was killed, but as part of his activism. But also, I have an inkling that was there not a campaign ongoing to take Shell to court over all of this?
Sir, I can definitively tell you that there have been multiple campaigns over
Right.
the years, but if you look at what goes on, is either they are being strong-armed into stopping the suit, or the powers that be are being bribed into just forgetting it and burying it underground. So
Okay.
I feel they're constantly ongoing, but at the same time, nothing really changes.
Yes. There is a memorial to Sarah Weaver in London. I don't know quite. It was in Docklands, but it was set up by another activist organisation called Platform, which might be worth investigating. Anyway.
So I actually know of one activist company. I actually worked for them called MOA. They were tasked with the repatriation of African artifacts from around the world.
Right.
And and currently in the news you can see what's going on with them. They're being prosecuted basically for, you know, trying to help the community. So
Yes.
at the end of the day, I feel one of the main problems is not that we don't have activists willing to speak out, is that the community actively cannibalizes its own. You know, trying to stand up and speak for something, you would be shut down by other people who have, you know, something to gain from doing that.
No
That's a big deal.
No government support.
It's terrifying.
Okay, thank you.
That is the most terrifying aspect, I guess, not being able to trust people that you live among to think the same as you and feel the same as you. At least we have a certain element of trust. There is corruption, but not as bad. I think we need to stop there. And thank you so much, Oloche. We will carry on being in touch, and we will talk more about the paintings, which have now arrived, but yeah, they're not here today, but they will be, and the prints and everything. But anyway, thank you so much, and thank you, Russell. Russell, do you want to just say hello, goodbye at the mic?
Always a pleasure, Veronica.
I'm tall as well, can you see me?
Yes, I can.
I'm a little bit embarrassed actually because my brother actually works for the oil companies, ExxonMobil, and obviously he's told me a lot about your delta and the pollution, and you've justified what I know, and he's told me everything's backhanders, bribery, anyone that complains about it doesn't work for the oil company anymore, and everything is about, you know, keeping it quiet. And, you know, as a group, what you do though, I sort of don't know what you can do, because obviously oil speaks, and the money behind Shell and Exxon is incredible. I mean, my brother doesn't actually drill out the oil. He's the one that actually works out where the cables and pipes go to, because he's a hydrographic surveyor. So, and he can actually see it. And he's a bit like me. He's a bit of a campaigner and goes there. And so every time he's on a boat going through the jungle with sort of American Marines protecting him, so anyone locally comes near them, they'll basically shoot them. As you said before, anyone tries to get near any of the rigs, they can be shot and disappear. And he said what he sees there is just oil everywhere, even to the point he's seen human bodies washed up on the delta, and you know whether that's natural or just floods, but just everything is wrong, isn't it? But you know, obviously we're not going to change our reliance to oil, are we? That's my confession anyway. It's not me, it's my brother. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for your thank you also, Oloche, for your very powerful work, which we will use to good effect in the way we talk and what we've learnt from you. So, goodbye. Thank you. Okay, lunchtime.